Hey everyone, I am excited to have Erik Kostelnik with me. He's the CEO of Postal.io. It's a really cool new company that's kind of popped up recently. I'm excited to have him today talking through Postal.io, offline, kind of combining offline and online marketing, and really just finding the ways to connect better with your customers, providing that experience that really leads to loyalty and community. So Erik, if you wouldn't mind kind of giving us a little bit of background on yourself, talk a little bit about Postal.io, and then we'll kind of go into some questions.
Yeah, no, thanks, Joe. I appreciate me being here and inviting me into LinkedIn Live. This is the first time I've been on this, so this is pretty awesome. So yeah, my background, I've been a career sales guy for the last 20 years, and I got to a point in my career where I just decided, you know what, I've gone through the building teams and scaling revenue models. I should try to maybe do something myself, and that's what happened in my last business. And that company was called Text Recruit, and we ended up building that business up to a $30 million book of business over 4 years. And we sold that to a company called iSIMS that's based in New Jersey, who ended up being a Vista company. And after that, my co-founder and I kind of sat back and said, okay, what do we want to attack next? We're 40. We think we got maybe a couple good runs in us left, maybe one big run in us. So what do we want to tackle? And really, what at the end of the day, it became, number one, I didn't want to live in the Bay Area anymore. I wanted to live in San Luis Obispo. So we ended up moving to SLO, my family. And I challenged kind of the status quo of, I believe I can build a tech business in the Central Coast and really increase people's quality of life and work-life balance while building $1 billion company. And the idea for Postal really came out of necessity. We knew that the last 20 years and being a salesperson, being a sales leader, there's been a tremendous amount of effort put towards the automation of digital communication and digital engagement. And I just thought that all the things that people send in the offline world, in the B2B experience, needed a platform, it needed a system, it needed automation, it needed to be tied into the integrations that you have in your current tech stack. And I felt like we were the team to do it. And we were able to put together a good business plan and get Mayfield Fund to support us in our Series A that happened in October. We raised $9 million and we launched the product in May. And since then, we've been generating close to about 20 new customers a month at this point, even launching dead into COVID. So it is what it is.
That's really awesome. And it shows you kind of the, we were talking before we jumped on, just the enhanced need of lots of different touch points. And ABM and offline marketing doesn't die. It only gets enhanced when people are at home more frequently. So take us through how, what is the DNA of a good customer experience? Where does it start? How do you kind of produce that?
Yeah, so I think you really have to take a good look at your funnels about, okay, where does the customer experience start? And for me, it's always started, at the very top of the funnel. And the very top of the funnel in any strong B2B company, it's all about content generation and brand parity. So when you think about when you're launching a brand, which we've been doing here over the last 4 months, you really have to make sure that the brand, from a company perspective, from an employment perspective, and from a product perspective, are all aligned in their messaging and their core values and what you're trying to accomplish in the marketplace. And that's done through your marketing organization, which really has turned into a content engine. And I think even more now than we've seen in the past 5 years, we know that personalized, relevant content is incredibly important. And doing that through digital mediums is still the main target, right? So it's like how these channels that you have that you go out and you present this message. So what we've started seeing is that, you need to have that true, strong top of the funnel content engine, personalization, differentiation from you and your competitors. And then through that funnel, the ABM strategy really is something that has been refined over the last 10 years. I think when I got my first book of business when I was 23, it was essentially like, I got an Excel spreadsheet. Like go sell these companies, right? And I just call in and be like, hey, like my name's Erik Kostelnik. I work for, at the time it was a fleet leasing company, PHHRL, looking for the fleet leasing manager. And you just blueprint, cold calling. Now it's it's not incredibly different, but you have all of this technology that supports your activity into that account. So, I like to say that our salespeople are Marines, and our marketing organization is our ground cover or our Air Force. And so really what we need to do is have those parity messages, but then start developing personalized experiences for our customers. So it's not just going in and saying, cold calling and doing your normal sales loft or outreach sequences. It's really, how do you start building a brand for yourself and for the company? And part of that is swag. Part of that is, sending bottles of booze. Part of that is sending gifts and donations on behalf of your customers. But all of that has to be on message. It has to be in sequence, and it has to be relevant for that prospect. And I think as you move that person through the funnel, you continue your digital outreach, but you also have to, after your post, since we're not handshaking anymore, like Joe, you and I probably be like, go grab a drink after this, right?
Yeah, right.
We can't do that anymore. So it's like, how do you create that virtual handshake? How do you create that virtual hug? Like you have to create something that is, and it's so hard digital because everybody's getting overloaded, but you have to create something that's tangible and something that you can feel. And for us, we think that, Postal can provide you those resources to do that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think the thread that you kind of touched on most is just like a unified connection from top of funnel to middle to, long-time customer, really finding ways to create those touch points, especially with B2B where deal cycles may be 6 months or longer, depending if they're, really long. You need to stay engaged along the way and not just be like, hey, following up on how's everything going with procurement, or how's everything going with your legal team? You don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over.
Especially if your contract sizes are over $5,000. That's kind of the limit that we like to kind of put out there. And so when you're looking at your deal sizes that are above $5,000, lifetime value minimum of $15K, you can afford to spend $100 to $500 per lead. And a lot of enterprise companies are spending up to, we've heard $6,000 per lead. And that's pre-qualification. So, these companies have always used some sort of offline engagement. They just consider that their marketing closet. And so really, when you think about now, when people don't have access to their marketing closet, how do you create a virtual marketing closet? Well, you create a marketplace, which is the Postal marketplace, which has all of the stuff that you need to send in it, all the vendors that provide this personalized experience. And then you have integrations to pull all your contacts in and give your salespeople the ability to, make sure that they've budgeted and that you're managing and rolling up what that cost is per those accounts. But anyway, at the end of the day, we're just trying to make $1. All these sales guys are just trying to make $1. Like, how do you make $1 right now? Super hard to make $1 right now. So, got to do things differently.
Yeah, it's funny. I saw a CEO post on Twitter in kind of end of Q2 or first part of Q3, and they said we made $20 in MRR this month or this quarter, and it's the best $20 I've ever made. Or something. It's like, we're all kind of scrapping and working hard and trying to provide a lot of value and creating experiences for our customers where we delay payments or give discounts to keep them so they don't have to necessarily churn. Let's kind of focus on that end customer where they've given you money and they maybe have been with you for a while. How can kind of the offline and digital kind of work together to improve that loyalty and connection?
Yeah. So protecting your base is, if you have a base, is the most important thing for any business in this time, right? And I think we're starting to see indications that this downturn with COVID is starting, especially in the technology, software, hardware world, is starting to lessen. The blow is starting to lessen. Companies are going back to hiring again. So I don't think we're going to see an extension of this period of time very much longer. Hopefully not. Fingers crossed. That being said, you still have to protect your base throughout your quarter four. Majority of business, 50% of all business is done in Q4. So how do you protect that base? Well, you as everybody knows, like if you go into December and you haven't reached out to your renewals and your customers, they're gone.
Yep.
So it starts today. You get a customer. What is that relationship? What do you want your customer brand to be? What is your customer loyalty program? How do you ensure that you win them not only as a customer but as someone that is an advocate for you? And this goes back to old days of NPS. But really, the way that I look at this is, it really is a playbook. You have to have a standardized playbook that happens when that person becomes a customer. And that person bought, by the way, company bought, yes, but that person makes that decision-making process. It's funny. HubSpot just came out with some data on, it was like their state of the marketing, or not another state of the marketing pamphlet, and it talked about how companies buy from people and the influence of salespeople and that process that people take in that buying cycle when they trust and they like the person that they're buying from. Same thing goes on the renewal side of things. So what our suggestion always has been is that, number one, you have to have your sequences set up in either Outreach, SalesLoft, or Marketo, or HubSpot. Sure. You have to have someone assigned to that renewal. But those sequences have to go over time. And what we're starting to do is since we integrate with all those systems, we're starting to integrate points of offline engagement in those sequences. So yeah, you might send off a welcome email from the sales VP or the VP of customer success or the CEO, but that should be followed. If it's over $5,000, give them a bottle of champagne, right? That can set off a trigger to send a bottle of champagne, either from the CEO of the company or from the rep that's assigned, and that can just automatically happen. And next thing you know, you're in a Postal playbook, and that Postal playbook will run for the 12 months, and every single quarter it'll drop something else in there. So maybe the next quarter it's a shirt, maybe the next quarter it's a pamphlet, a brochure that's curated for them, and maybe the final quarter it's something like some flowers or something, right? Whatever it is, you have to determine how much your spending profile is. But if you're $5,000 or more, you're gonna want to spend like $250, $500 throughout that life cycle to try to get that renewal locked. Yep. And if you're not doing that today, most companies try to do that, but it's very manual and it's tough because they have the marketing closet and they're trying to, and all the digital communication solid. So anyway, we really like that workflow because it's scalable and you don't have to touch it. It's just like press your playbook in Marketo, and then they just go.
Yeah, and it has like a nice secondary effect where, it obviously helps with the renewal, it helps build the relationship, but it also has kind of overlaying brand effect. Like I think of when I've gone to like a nice restaurant or I've stayed at like a nice hotel, I'll get like a card in the mail. Yep. And it's totally unexpected, and it's like a thank you card, handwritten by the manager, and it's like, hey, thanks for coming and staying with us, or thanks for spending your anniversary at our restaurant or whatever. And it's only happened a handful of times, but that's obviously,
you remember those, we when we first started, it had everything to do with how do we automate the personal handwritten note. That was Postal origination. It's like, man, I remember sitting there with piles of postcards, right? And just like handwriting a note. Yeah, that was part of our process when I was selling at Career Builder. And even when we started selling at Identified and Reich. But when you look at that process, it's antiquated and it's difficult from a manual perspective, and it's not trackable. So how do you bring that onto a system? And so really what we did was we said, okay, we got to have AI handwriting that looks legit and like is is exactly, it looks like somebody wrote it, right? And then we got to have messaging that is personalized, that is absolutely part of the message that you have. And now, as a part of this, if you just ran a meeting with the customer, you could, send a handwritten note through Postal that's branded to that individual. Now, COVID makes things a little bit more difficult because you're not sure where people are.
You gotta get their address, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get their address. And so we have partners that have, are enabling us to, and our customers to send directly to people's, work from home addresses or other places that they're working, which is, we've seen pretty effective. And we also have like address refresh and stuff that happens that, customers can use. But yeah, anyway.
So along the way, when you are kind of communicating visually or communicating digitally through email or messaging, how can visuals and video really enhance that? So Cloud App is a async communication tool. It helps you create screen recorded videos, screenshots, GIFs. How can that kind of really enhance that connection?
I mean, first off, that has to be a part of your strategy. Video and personalized video today is what email was, I believe, in the beginning. So, especially on the sales, on the enterprise side of things, where you have the ability to personalize messaging, send off messaging, LinkedIn has started, integrating, the voice messages. I'm sure video messages are soon to follow at LinkedIn. And, obviously not everybody does business on LinkedIn. If you're not selling to sales marketers or recruiters, it's not the best place to do business. But if you're selling to sales marketers or recruiters, great place to do business. But other than that, this whole concept of pattern interrupt is an absolute real thing. Everybody's got the playbook now to sales acceleration. Right? Revenue acceleration, all the Aaron Ross preaching over the last 10 years and all of those that have come after him on actually how you optimize this outbound process and this ABM process. Dude, everyone's got that. So how can you differentiate yourself? And how can you differentiate yourself but not have to work 10 times as hard?
Yeah. Sure.
How can you get technology to solve the problems of automating certain manual steps? And you have to find those technologies that work. But the moral of the story is, if you're not doing things that your competitors aren't doing, and you're not making connections with your customers in different ways, then you're not winning. So
exactly, yeah. What does your company do? You guys lead kind of this great offline product and company. What does your company do to create an experience for a customer? Obviously, you're kind of getting started, adding a lot of people every week, but what has kind of been your strategy there?
Yeah, so from the beginning, we had to, this was such a bizarre way to start a company. I've been a part of 4 startups that ended up becoming successful and exiting. And so this will be my 4th. We were ready to go in January, and then we're starting seeing this COVID thing come along. I'm going to tell a story around this because it's relevant, but it was like, I'm like, something is happening here with this event that's happening in China, and I'm just not sure if this is the right time to start, and then boom, February happened, and then March happened, and then we had to delay, and then it was like, okay, let's just hold tight and see what's going on. And our PR agency, who was in charge of this, this whole entire launch, was like, Eric, you got to go. It's not going to get better. You got to go now. And that was May. And so I was like, all right, screw it. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's launch it. And so we had to think about, does our messaging change as a business? Does our personas change? Does our target marketing change? Does our ABM strategy change? Do the industries that we sell to change? Dude, there was a lot of soul searching of how we had to structure this business just to make sure that we weren't lost in the hype cycle. That was a massive hype cycle in Q2. And luckily we didn't have to protect a base of business, right? Which is what we were talking about before. We were just knew everything, still knew everything until 12 months. But that being said, we knew the messaging needed to ensure that we helped customers understand that we wanted to help them create connections in this offline world when handshakes and hugs were not available and conferences were closed. I love selling people in person. That was my jam. Like taking steak dinners, going out, having a fun time. That was it. That's how I sold. Most really good enterprise people do that really well. But how do you do this now? And so now it's the messaging when we launched had everything to do with how do you create connections with customers when you can't be in front of them? And how do you differentiate yourself? And so all of the assets that we put forward from our own sales team had that messaging. We started off with direct mail because we didn't know what our top of the funnel cost per lead cost was going to be. We had kind of an idea, but we didn't know how much it was going to cost as we were going to product market fit. So we had to do something that was cheaper. And that was just, hey, let's send postcards, note cards, brochures as the top of the funnel. So email, brochure. That's immediately what happened. And we used our address refresh to like go out and ask people where they were working to like get the information to send them that personalized brochure. Then depending on the title, if it was a C level or a VP level, that went to our AEs. Anything else less in our outbound went to our SDRs. Our SDRs were sending gift cards to have virtual lunches halfway through the cycle. They use LinkedIn and email and all that stuff. Virtual lunches to try to get people to do qual calls for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And our C-level conversations had everything to do with, trying to figure out where that person went to school, what their affiliations were, which is all available on LinkedIn. And then pulling some personalized information about them and sending something that's personally curated for them. Because we knew those deals potentially would be bigger opportunities for us and we could spend more money on them. And then through the cycle, as we got them through, and we would take video of us actually sending them the stuff through the platform, which is just clicks, right? And then that ended up getting us into a place to where we started converting. And we ended up getting 5% of our outbound to convert to meetings in the first 3 months, which I thought was like crazy. I'm like,
wow.
Oh my God, that's super high, especially in COVID time. So if we can get 5% to convert into meetings and then at least 20% to move on to the opportunity stage, and then close 50% of those deals, we got business. We got a business in the dead heat of a pandemic. And that's where we're at right now. So, for me, it's all math, but it's all about math and personalization. And ensuring that our processes are scalable. So
that's really cool. Yeah, I think you brought on some great points about it. It takes work, right? It's not just something that just happens. It takes design. It takes effort. It takes a team really focused on it. I want to flip things for you a little bit.
Yeah.
What's a chance? Or what's something you've recently experienced as a customer? Could be retail, travel, B2B. What's something that you've experienced as a customer that really created a loyalty moment for you?
So the one that I think about most and part of the catalyst to starting this business was the experience that Google had in getting us on the cloud at Text Recruit. And that was about 5 years ago. And we were going through, we were already customers on the cloud, but we were looking at AWS for our cloud services and Google and Azure. And so we'd gone through this process. The next thing you know, I got this box in the mail that came to my desk. And, I came back from a meeting and this Google box is on my desk. And I opened this Google box up, and there was a Chromebook inside, and there was like a note on. It wasn't handwritten. It was just like a note on top from the rep and said, "Hey, listen, I want to reach out to you and give you the opportunity to schedule a meeting with me, through this Chromebook. We're doing this for all of our strategic customers. Really love to chat with you. Go ahead and open me up." Boom, you open it up, and a video played. And I was just like, whoa, that is pretty incredible, right? But there was a kind of a catch to it. The charging cord, he had the charging cord. So I don't necessarily like playing games like that. If you know, if you want to like give me something and to book me, I'll book a meeting with you if it's cool and like it's relevant.
Yeah.
But I thought that was like, I was like, I'm not sure about that, but I took the meeting, got the charge cord, got the computer. And then I started thinking like, man, how much did they spend on this and how manual is this process? And I actually dug in with my sales rep from Google. Turned out they had a team of interns that were going and just like, they had, a room full of laptops. Yeah. And we were just printing out FedEx labels and throwing it on there. And so I was like, wow, that is extremely time intensive and challenging. I think we can build something to change that. Anyway, but that experience that I had with Google, and then, it was relevant, it was timely, and it also was a great product, made me become a Google customer, not only for Text Recruit, but also for Postal as well.
That's a really good story. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, man.
I want you now to pull out kind of your crystal ball. What do you think is the future of experience business? We've talked about ABM, we've talked about visuals and video, offline and online. What do you see kind of the future of connecting with customers and creating loyal fans?
So I think there's two topics that don't get enough attention in our industry. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with both of them. The first one is virtual reality, and the second is AI. And when you think about what the opportunity is with both of those, and this is crystal ball, far future. There's a reason why Facebook is investing billions and billions of dollars in Oculus, and why Sony is investing billions of dollars in their PlayStation, and Microsoft has their HoloLens, and spending all this money on developing these technologies to bring augmented reality and virtual reality into a thing. I believe that the sales process is going to move into a more virtual reality setting, because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't it? Why do things have to be flat? Why can't they be dimensional? Like right now we read something, we see something, it's very flat. But why can't we interact with brands? Why can't we be immersed in brands? And immersion and interactiveness and personalization all comes in that virtual reality experience. And I truly believe that you're going to see B2C happen. It always 5 years, right? We're always 5 years behind on B2B side of things. You're going to start seeing interactive experiences on the VR side of things with B2C brands, and that will push forward. You've already seen buying, like storefronts moving on to virtual. You're going to see that creep into B2B within the next 10 years. The AI component. So this is something that's very interesting, and AI is separate from also neuroscience and neuromarketing, which we're doing a podcast in September with some subject matter experts. Essentially, neuromarketing is understanding how the brain reacts to things subconsciously, and then you create impressions on people without them knowing it, and creating lasting impressions and experiences in their subconscious. That is neuromarketing, which I believe it happens a lot in B2C. It's moving into B2B. Also, your AI components is taking the massive amounts of data that you have and then taking that information, processing that information, and then creating unique experiences through that information and what that computer is saying to do. I think both of those things are going to drive a couple of changes. Number one, I don't think you're going to be receiving in the future non-relevant content. I don't think you're ever going to get a job recommendation or a product recommendation that is not completely suited to what and tailored to what you need at that specific time. There's also an asterisk to this. That can only happen if privacy data is still widely available. I'm sorry, personal data is water, and privacy doesn't like kind of make that unavailable. If people keep on putting stuff on the web, and you're still able to read all that information and then process that information, you should be able to deliver experiences through these different channels, through understanding neuromarketing and AI. But I don't think you're going to receive anything that's not specifically what you want, when you want, and at the price that you need it. That's going to happen in B2C first, and that's going to move into B2B. So I think that everyone really is going to find that the buying experience is going to be better in the future. It needs to change. It's super antiquated when it comes to B2B buying. It's like everybody knows they want the best price. Everybody knows what they want a trial, reducing friction along the way, and everybody knows what they want when they want it. So as a salesperson, as a marketer, as a business, you need to ensure that you know when those points of time is, and AI, machine learning, and neuromarketing, and then VR is going to help us bring all that to light in the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think you nailed a lot of those things. Those were all very top of mind when I was with Adobe, and we actually, when I was over there, we actually hired a lot of like PhDs in neuroscience, like you mentioned.
Nice.
And was focusing on a lot of those things. And I think definitely the digital transformation that we've all kind of been forced to go through will help accelerate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, technology, Moore's Law is absolutely continuing to happen. So it's going to be a lot easier to get a tremendous amount of information that can help us understand how to optimize these buying experiences. But I'd love to hear more about the Adobe neuroscience, because you don't hear that on the B2B side so much. Can you tell me a little bit about what you guys did there?
Yeah, so a lot of it was on the research side initially. So it's just to better understand customers and know how to tailor surveys and things to really understand, deep focuses of people in the future. And then Adobe was also working on user stitching. So depending on if someone was on a computer or a mobile device, or went across different websites, they could stitch that mobile's or that customer's usage together, so that they could be able to tailor that experience, like you mentioned.
Interesting. Were you doing any mapping, what is it, fMRI? Like, were you doing actually any mind mapping of your customers while they were seeing certain things, or was it?
I'm not sure about that. I think we were maybe moving in that direction, but I'm not sure if we actually ended up doing anything like that.
Because it's
pretty cool.
Super interesting. Yeah. And we were actually, it's funny, I was like talking to these scientists over the last couple of weeks, which is extremely dense information and topics. It's very scientific. But we were having challenges trying to find B2B companies that are actually leveraging neuromarketing in an effective way. And it's awesome to hear Adobe did that. And of course, you guys are very design focused as well. So it will make a lot of sense. But yeah, we can talk more about that offline. We'll hear more.
Definitely. Yeah, Eric, it was a real pleasure. So great to have you on. I'm really excited to see what comes out of Postal and what you guys are able to produce. I'll definitely be keeping in touch and following you along the way.
Awesome. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Eric.